I don't understand these companies where they take so much time and effort to change their logo. And my thought process is, does a logo really make you that much more money or really prevent you from making that much more money? I just find it hard to believe that changing your logo is really going to make that much of a difference, first of all. If it feels like a massive waste of money and a massive waste of time as well. I will say this. First of all, one more thing I want to bring up. I noticed the other day there was a company. I think they were like a nutrition bar, one of those like protein bar type companies. I don't know if this was like a troll or if they were being serious. I think they were being serious. They spent months redesigning their logo, and the logo that they came up with looked almost identical to the original logo. And I sat there and thought to myself, maybe this is like some crazy high IQ play where if you change your logo and make it look, just if you change your logo, you can post about it on social media. And even though the new logo change is so ridiculous and so unnecessary, maybe it'll spark so much controversy that it'll drive attention to the company, which will ultimately, hopefully, lead to revenue and profit. That was my thought process. And maybe that was their strategy. But part of me also thought to myself, a decision this stupid would make me not want to shop at their company, or it would make me not want their product. Like, I'd go out of my way to avoid their product because it was such a stupid decision and because it was such a waste of money. Like, I know that's me thinking that way. I feel like a lot of average citizens or maybe their typical consumers wouldn't feel that way. But I don't know. I can't imagine that that logo change made a significant difference to their overall, I don't know, profits and revenue. There's sort of this trend that I've noticed over the past couple of years where I'll say the soul of products and the soul of companies has almost been extinguished. And what I mean by that is I think so many companies are trying their best to optimize things for solely for the sake of profit that they've lost all creative aspects that make the companies or make the brands personal or personable, we'll say. And I feel like on paper that seems like a good idea to like make everything very cookie cutter, make everything very consistent, optimize for profits. But I feel like personable brands or personable companies or easily identifiable or recognizable companies, this is just my thought process. It's a variable that you can't easily look at on paper, but it's a variable that probably makes up a lot of what makes a company profitable or increases their revenue. Some examples of this is a while back, like a year or so ago, me and my friends were walking through DC, and all of the buildings look the same. Like they all look like the same cookie cutter, generic corporate buildings, which is fine. But we were saying these buildings feel so soulless and lifeless. Like it feels like they don't even hire architects anymore, and I don't really know like what goes super deep into the job description of an architect, but it feels like all they're doing is they're just repeating the exact same design for every building in every location for every type of circumstance or situation. Like in the past, you could go to Pizza Hut, for example, and a Pizza Hut had a very distinct look to it. It had a very distinct design. Even if there was no logo on the building, you knew it was Pizza Hut based on like the shape of the roof. Or you could go to a McDonald's, and McDonald's had a very specific type of shape. You can go to certain stores, and they had a very distinct look to them. But nowadays, you go to these same stores. You go to a Pizza Hut. A Pizza Hut's just a generic rectangle with brown bricks in a generic plaza where every building has the exact same rectangle design with brown bricks. You go to McDonald's. Every McDonald's has a rectangular design with brown bricks. It looks very generic, looks very copy and paste. I don't know what the psychology behind that is, or I don't know why that's the design people are going for. My guess is that it's just simple and it's easy to replicate, so it saves money, and there's not much guesswork that goes into it. You probably don't have to pay a lot of money to hire people to check the structural integrity of the buildings as much because they're the exact same design, so it's super predictable. But yeah, that's kind of my thought process. You know what? I was thinking about this the other day because a lot of people talk about how, what's a good way to put this? A lot of people will say how things since like the 2000s, like music, movies, etc., they don't have that same impact. They don't feel quite the same way. And I thought about that for a while because I wondered if it was a case of just nostalgia. Like, do we just feel nostalgic about things from our youth? Like, my thought process was I'm hanging around a lot of people who are millennials or people in their 30s, maybe late 20s, maybe early 40s. And maybe we're all just nostalgic about how movies or how restaurants or how TV shows, cartoons, etc. were at the time. But the more I thought about it, the more I kind of came up with this theory that when you're an artist, you inject your soul. This is kind of like a weird theory, but my theory is that when you're an artist, you inject your soul into the things you create if you're creating them for the sake of being creative. But the problem is that nowadays, everything's so overly corporatized, everything's so profit driven that you no longer are getting artists to make things for the sake of art. You're getting business people to hire people to create things solely for the sake of predictable revenue. Like Toy Story 1 felt fresh, it felt new, it felt unique. Oh, there's these toys that come to life when you're not looking at them. But then when you're looking at them, they kind of fall, asleep or they lay limp. And there's this cool story that develops beyond that. Oh, you have this new company, Pixar, that's doing all this cool stuff with like 3D animations. You have all these cool like horror movies. You have things like Blair Witch Project. Someone took their phone and made it feel organic. It made it feel real. They're going in the woods. It's not really much happening, but it's enough to make you curious and to make you a bit fearful. But then, or Paranormal Activity, another good example. Paranormal Activity, a great horror movie where very low budget. It's this guy who's claiming that weird things are happening in his house, so he takes out a camera and he's documenting it, and you see the weird stuff unfold over the course of the movie. But the issue is that the first movie felt like he was injecting his soul into it because it was a brand new idea that was a bit risky, but he was willing to take the risk. Whoever created the movie. By the time the fourth or fifth movie comes around, it's no longer him or the creators putting in their soul into the project. It's them doing what worked in the past for the sake of profit and for no other reason. And I think that's kind of why everything feels so soulless, is because there is no soul being injected into these creative pursuits. All the buildings look the exact same. There's no architect designing a brand new building. There's no company logo that looks that fresh, getting back to the Cracker Barrel thing, because there's no real creative reason to do that. If we make it look generic, if we make it look simple, if we make it look easily digestible, we believe it's more profitable. But at the cost of trying to be profitable, which I don't think they're even are profitable, but at the cost of trying to be profitable, we've lost the soul. And the soul is the thing that actually drove the brand recognition, the profits in the grand scheme of things. All the movies feel so generic because they're just remakes of what worked before. The first time we made the movie, there was soul injected to it. After the 15th time of remaking this exact same movie, there is no soul. There's just profit. And profit's not really attractive. No, consumers aren't attracted to companies who are just trying to profit. Same thing, a little bit geeking out, but I feel like the same thing is true with anime and manga. I see a lot of people kind of criticize a lot of anime and manga because so many of them feel so similar. And I think the issue is that when some of these concepts or ideas were first introduced in anime and manga, they were almost like a bit of the creator's soul coming up with something that was risky, but in the risk lied the nuance and the difference of it. And that's what made it appealing. Like that willing to take the risk, the willing for it to be fresh, that creativity and that soul injected into it. But then once it's been done and once people find out it can make money, other people are doing it not because it's their passion or not because they're injecting their soul into it. They're doing it because they think it'll just make them money. And because they think it'll make money, they're just repeating the exact same thing. And then it becomes boring and it becomes stale. And there's no real effort put into it. And then everyone hates it. It's a bit long-winded, but that's kind of just my theory, that all this stuff nowadays, it's not really nostalgia that we were addicted to or we were attracted to. It's the soul of the creator or creators being injected into these projects that made them appealing in the first place. But since they started making money, they, when you're trying to recreate something that was a passion product, but now it's a profit-based project, it just loses all of its charm and it becomes boring and dull. And this is kind of why life feels so dull for a lot of people. Same with music. Music's another big one. When a creator makes music, it's kind of like when you see the indie underground artists making stuff and everyone loves them, and then when they get big, they say, "Oh, you sold out." I think the sellout part isn't just because they're popular. I think the sellout part is because they start making the music that the music label wants them to make, because the music label is so used to making profits with certain types of music that they just keep reproducing the exact same type of music, and then it sounds generic and stale. And then your favorite music artist or your favorite musician sounds like every other musician instead of sounding like themselves. So super long-winded, but that's kind of just my idea. Does that make sense?